Alrighty. Alright everybody, welcome to the Denver Bitcoin Center. My name is Chad McDonald. This is Ben Ulrich. We are the leaders, I suppose, of this place. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things. Our membership is growing. We're very, very excited. So thank you guys for being part of this. Donations. It is great to see you all here. Please sign up, become a member here. It's $75 a month for a floor seat. We have dedicated desks as well for $150 a month. And we also can do other special arrangements such as front customer service or mailing, any type of things that you need if you're gonna shack up here and code or do whatever you want. So that's it for my side. Ben?
Well, welcome. Tonight we have a special speaker, Paul Puey, who I don't know if you guys know is the CEO of AirBitz. So we're really glad to have him in town this week, and I'll introduce him, or he'll come up here in a minute, and he's got a really awesome presentation about decentralization that is not necessarily about his company, which is different, and I respect that a lot because most people want to come in and just give us a pitch. So it's good to know that you want to educate people somewhat too. Also, we've got a couple other announcements. Regular meetup on second Monday every month, Southern Hospitality. And then, other than that, I mean, is there any community announcements or sponsors? Obviously, thank you to our videographers. That's through Warren Tech, and who else? Any other specific people? Just Warren Tech? Awesome. Wow. Warren Tech is great. A lot of my friends did in high school, so yeah, let's stop and applaud for videography. Because usually we don't record this, or it's really crappy recording. So that's a much needed thing that I've gotten complained at. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Paul, who's going to give us the most amazing presentation you guys have ever seen. I hope you can live up to that.
I know, I'll do my best. Well, thanks guys. My name is Paul Puey. I was headed to New York, and I wanted to stop over here in Denver because I know there was quite a bit of Bitcoin activity just from having talked to Ben and other different conferences, and seeing on our merchant directory a lot of different merchants pop up. And I was over at Southern Hospitality yesterday, had amazing food, and most importantly, amazing hospitality. I love the place, I love the way it looks. I so wish, I'm jealous actually. I'm based in San Diego, and I wish we had a place like that we can call like our Bitcoin anchoring restaurant. We have a few, but nothing of that caliber. And we'd also love to have a place like this Bitcoin Center. So this is an inspiration for me to take back home to California and San Diego and see if we can build this type of a community around Bitcoin. So as Ben had mentioned, today I want to talk to you guys about keeping Bitcoin decentralized. And you know, Bitcoin came as a decentralized technology, but it's gone and kind of traveled different paths and different implementations, and there's different ways that people and different companies are implementing it. But I want to talk about the value system of keeping it decentralized. Then I want to talk a little bit about what AirBitz is doing to retain that level of decentralization. Because decentralization is not black and white. First, why should you care? And then how do you care is what we're going to talk about. So first of all, what exactly is, introduction, myself, CEO and co-founder of AirBitz, and I was a Bitcoin user since about 2013, not super early. I do have a technical background. I used to work at NVIDIA doing visual computing. But more importantly, I was also a small business manager and owner. I was the guy that was doing the books, getting reamed with credit card fees and having to deal with tons of cash that I'd have to hike over to a bank, feeling really scared I was going to get jumped. And I see now the true value of Bitcoin, being able to solve both sides of the equation, both eliminating the fees of digital payments, but also eliminating the hassles of cash. So what exactly does decentralized mean? It means peer-to-peer. Everyone's an equal. There's no client and there's no server. There's no master, no slave, and there's no single point of failure. Most importantly, no reliance on one person or company. But once again, this is a big gray area between centralized and decentralized. There's nothing that's perfectly centralized, and there's nothing perfectly decentralized. But more importantly, why should you even care about decentralization? From the standpoint of systems, it makes a more anti-fragile system. You try to attack the system, well, you might take out some of the nodes of this network, but you don't necessarily take them out all. Reliability is a big thing as well. You know, if something fails, it goes down, you've got a hard drive that fails, you've got some backups. Privacy is a really big thing too, and it's really hard to achieve privacy without decentralization. With decentralization means that the path from one point to another can take many different routes. Once you have a centralized route, you know that you could choke the privacy through a central point, and you can analyze that traffic. And this is an important one, unbiased access. One of the most powerful things about this technology is it's unbiased. It allows us to send money from any one place to any other place without someone saying, no, you can't do it. And that's really easy to chokehold if you have a centralized network. So keeping that decentralized is important. And another one that sounds almost like it's out of nowhere is decentralization with respect to holding your money helps prevent fractional reserve, which is one of the things that kind of put our entire financial system in this weird house of cards that we're in right now. And with respect to decentralization, if you centralize funds, not only can you fall into the trap, the pitfall of fractional reserve, in ways you almost certainly will. So there's many different layers of decentralization. There's how do you control your keys, how do you access the network, how do you store your data, and the key thing that I'm going to go into is almost the politics of Bitcoin, and that's your choice of implementation, the code that is implementing the protocol. We'll first talk about the control of the keys. See here we go. So why should you care about controlling your own keys? Controlling your own keys means controlling your own money. And this is the invention of Bitcoin. This is what made it unique. That's the reason why we're even here today, is because for the first time ever in history, we're able to control our own digital asset. This has never happened before. Anytime you've ever held digital value, it's always been by a third party. So now that we're able to do it, let's take advantage of it. So controlling your own money. So one thing that does is it gives you no counterparty risk or minimal counterparty risk. There's no third party to hold your money and decide if they just arbitrarily want to spend it or have a gun put to their head to say, give it to me. But another thing people don't realize is that by having decentralized control of money, meaning individuals holding their money, you actually have security by incentive. The incentive to hack a central authority to gain resources that are almost like a honeypot of everyone's funds is much, much higher than if funds are stored at the nodes. Everyone holding their own money, it's not nearly as interesting. I could punch you in the face down the street and grab your wallet, but I don't know how much money's in there, and odds are it's probably not worth the effort. Once you collect everyone's funds, now that suddenly does become worth the effort, and that's why there are bank robberies and hacks into banks or custodial accounts. Another aspect which is really glossed over is the thing I call the reliability of sending. When you have a lot of funds stored in one place, for security, especially with Bitcoin, most of those funds are stored offline. They're typically stored cold storage on USB thumb drives or on paper, and only a small amount of funds are stored on a server for security's sake, because that can be hacked, and that's what's available for spending. So if all of us here stored 1 Bitcoin on a hosted wallet, and about 90% of those funds were offline, then if 1 out of 10 of us spent all of our money, transferred out somewhere else, the next person wouldn't be able to spend money. Until someone went over to a safe, unlocked it, brought out some private keys, and reloaded the server. And from the viewpoint of usability, not even the ideology, forget the ideology of holding your own money, from the viewpoint of user experience and usability, this really breaks down. And the reason is because we've taken the legacy banking model, which is custodial access, and applied it to Bitcoin. But with the legacy banking model, we don't transfer money, we transfer debt. We never transfer real money, at least not until days later when we settle it. With Bitcoin, we're actually transferring real digital value instantly. And that person who's receiving the money doesn't care to give you that product until they actually see the money. So custodial access breaks down once we really start using Bitcoin a lot, and that 10% or 5% that's in hot storage just isn't enough. And like I said, it prevents fractional reserve. A key also of control of private keys that people should understand is multi-sig. Multi-sig does give us a great way of distributing that control of private keys. But people think that multi-sig equals security, and that's a massive, massive fallacy. Multi-sig does not equal security. Multi-sig is nothing more than a set of rules by which you can implement additional security, but it's got to be right. If you don't implement the rules correctly, then you're not necessarily going to get any added security. I can have 3 keys, create them on my phone, hold them on my phone, unencrypted, without a backup. I am not any more secure than if I had a single sig. And what people don't realize is there's subtleties in implementations of multi-sig that can actually create massive security holes. So, where are your keys created? Where are they stored? If you've compromised the distribution of that ownership, then you've compromised that security. So I talked a little bit about fractional reserve. This is a quick little demonstration of how quick it is to basically invent money with fractional reserve. What is it, $700 or $1,000 quickly becomes about $3,400 in 3 quick and easy steps. And this creates a huge, huge house of cards in our financial system. And why I bring this up is because if you do hold your money, if everyone held their own value, this is absolutely impossible. This needs custodial access, because when someone holds your value, then they can lend it out. And not only can they almost have to. If you think about the way banks make money and are able to sustain themselves, they have to loan money out. And they can't loan their own because they can't make enough money on that. They have to loan yours. And storage of other people's funds is actually a very expensive thing to do. The security is expensive, the access is expensive. So how do they make up for it? But other than by loaning. We haven't done this today with Bitcoin, but I'm almost guaranteed sure. I'll put my face in the camera and say that in 10 years, most of the Bitcoin ecosystem is using custodial access, then we will have fractional reserve in Bitcoin. Almost guaranteed. So the next aspect of decentralization I want to talk about is access to the Bitcoin network. Let's see if this thing can slide correctly this time. There we go. So say you hold your own private keys, so you're kind of decentralized. The funds are distributed, but how do you talk to the network? If you're talking through a central point, a single server, a single wallet service company, then you're still centralized in your access. And that means you've lost that unbiased access to the network. Now someone can chokehold and say, no, I don't want you to send money out. Sorry, we don't like you sending money to that entity. Sorry, we don't like sending money to WikiLeaks or to Afghanistan or to any other entity. So ask yourself that question. This is a very subtle thing. Ask yourself, this implementation of Bitcoin I'm using, does it have a central point for me to access the network? And if it does, you also reduce your reliability. If that point goes down, so does your access to the network. And for all of you that are developers and using APIs, there's a lot of APIs which are great, give us a better opportunity and easier chance to access the Bitcoin ecosystem. But realize, are those APIs centralized? Meaning that everything I do in my application is dependent on this company. And if it is, then you've centralized an aspect of your platform. And then the storage of data. If you're using a wallet that stores your keys in one place or with one company, and that goes down, there goes your data. So think about that as far as improving redundancy and improving the aspect of centralization. That's pretty important, or decentralization, it's important. Now this last aspect of decentralization is pretty subtle. A lot of people haven't really thought about this at all. And this is what I call the decentralization of implementation. So Bitcoin is not open source software, contrary to what people say. Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a language by which computers talk to each other. It's like saying the internet is open source software. It's not. It's a protocol. It's how computers talk to each other. But in that respect, there's different implementations of Bitcoin. The original code that Satoshi wrote is one implementation. It's been hardened, it's been changed, people have adapted to it, changed it, added more functionality. That's Bitcoin Core, as known today, and a lot of it was developed by people that work for Bitcoin Foundation or are compensated by other companies. However, that's only one implementation. It's one code base, and that is what runs 99.9% of our network. It's what the miners run, it's what a lot of the nodes run, which means we now have a single point of failure with respect to the implementation of the code base. If a bug gets introduced into that, that bug is effectively everywhere in the network. And if there's something that we don't like about that implementation, we don't really have much of a choice because there's no other software running out there. You can think of it almost as like a political party. The network votes on everything. It votes on what Bitcoin supports and what it doesn't support. Imagine if you had to vote for president, and every election your only choice was the previous one or the next one, and that's it. It's already bad enough that we only have two political parties. Imagine if you only had one, and your only choice was keep the previous or go to the next. That's what Bitcoin is in today. All miners get to choose whether or not they take the next version or they keep the old. But that's it. That's the only choice they get. So even Gavin Andresen has gone on record and said that what we need are multiple implementations of the Bitcoin protocol. At least 3. 2 is terrible if it's split 50-50. Then we have a fork that just disagrees. We really want at least 3, preferably 5, each splitting an even amount of the network. So there's other implementations. I've put them down here. BTCD is one. That one's written in Go. There's one called LibBitcoin, which is written in C++, and that's what we use at AirBitz. It's also used by Dark Market, now called OpenBazaar, as well as a few other projects. And Bitcoin J, which is written in Java. So think about that, especially if you're a developer. If you're a consumer, it's kind of a tough choice. But if you're a developer, consider that as almost an ideological standpoint, and also from a point of view of what you want Bitcoin to become going forward. And so that's the aspect of decentralization, but how do we make it usable? To the average person, they just simply don't care. They just want it to be usable. And that is a huge challenge. most of the centralized implementations of Bitcoin are what people consider to be fairly usable. The custodial access accounts, the ones that behave like banks, are the ones that have the most number of users. So that's where we come in here at AirBitz. Is our challenge, and we take on this challenge, is to make Bitcoin usable and manageable to the average consumer, not to the tech geek, crypto anarchist. And so right now Bitcoin's tough. It requires people, for most wallets, to write down 12, 24 character or word passphrases to back up their wallet, maybe add encryption, look at long scary public addresses, and pair devices, things that kind of don't help mass adoption of Bitcoin. So what we've done is we built a solution. So just a click. Solution that is familiar. It feels like mobile banking. People create an account using just a username, a password, and a 4-digit PIN, and they really have private keys that get created, but they're automatically encrypted and automatically backed up, and they're on peer-to-peer distributed servers that we back them up to. And they can access that account from multiple devices, iPhone, Android, iPad, concurrently at the same time, and it's 100% non-custodial. AirBitz has no access to people's funds at all, and no visibility of any of the transactions. Ease of security is a mantra that we have at our company. We want to make things fairly simple to secure. And we're the first wallet that actually allows you to recover encrypted data. Passwords that encrypt data, for the most part, haven't been recoverable, but we've implemented password recovery. It's a little bit tedious in our implementation today, but it's actually going to get significantly more usable within about a quarter or two. We have a new implementation coming down the pipe. And we've added a feature we call one-touch two-factor. A lot of people here may or may have not. Who has two-factor on any account? A handful of you. How many of you enjoy using it? Two people. Okay, well, what do you know? We've got some outliers. I've never enjoyed using two-factor, but I see the value of it. Is that a question, or just like I enjoy using two-factor?
Hold on. Are we open for questions yet? Or?
I'll take a quick one.
So you say you can unencrypt encrypted software? Is that what you said?
We can recover passwords. What we do is we have 6 questions and answers, and the answers are a second password to decrypt your data.
Okay.
So we encrypt data in multiple ways, but we'll have another method that's actually going to be a little more detailed, but can still do the same thing with much less much of a hassle to people. But one-touch two-factor allows people to enable two-factor at the touch of a button and forget about it. No copying of 6-digit codes, no backing up of tokens. You just enable it and you forget about it. And things like that are where we really value ease of security, not just being secure, but being easy. And the wallet is very decentralized, meaning that we're very resistant to server outages. So keeping that at its heart is important to us. And there's our decentralized server model, which can be a little confusing to a lot of people, but we have 3 kinds of servers, and only one of them is centralized. And creating a new wallet, creating a new account, changing your password, that's what requires the centralized authentication server. Everything else, the storage of your encrypted data and access to the network, utilizes peer-to-peer, mostly decentralized servers. And so you can actually log into your account even when you're offline, because all it does is decrypt your data, and you can access the Bitcoin network even if AirBitz goes down. Something that almost every other wallet, especially the ones that are usable, decentralized ones, definitely cannot claim. And then we've added some ease of use functionality at the GUI level to make it pretty and make it usable. Instead of looking at long addresses, you see people's names that autocompletes from your address book, pictures that autocompletes from your address book, and since we have a built-in merchant directory, you can actually tag your transactions with merchants like I did yesterday when I went to Southern Hospitality. Tagged it, their name, their photo shows up on there, and all of this is searchable, just like you would want to out of a lot of financial software. And our wallet even lets people pay via Bluetooth, so eliminating the need to scan QR codes in situations where that's challenging. And all of this we do with a very, very high level of privacy. None of that information that you saw on there is visible to anyone but yourself. When you tag transactions, fiat values, all of that, it's all encrypted on your phone before it even gets saved on your phone, and definitely before it leaves the device to get backed up onto servers. We also implement dynamic rolling addresses, HD wallets, so that way every time you make a transaction, it is a new address. And one thing we're proud to say is that we're about to actually launch, integrated into the wallet, the ability to buy and sell inside of the mobile app. And we're doing this in a pseudo-decentralized manner. We're partnering with buy-sell exchanges around the world and connecting you directly from your phone to those buy-sell exchanges. And so for the first time, you're actually going to be able to buy and sell without custodial access, not access, but actually storage of your funds. You don't have to transfer it out of an exchange. It instantly shows up in your wallet, not instantly, but as soon as it settles, it's in your wallet, not with someone else. And the same thing when you sell. You sell, it instantly goes to your bank account.
So you set up your bank account once?
What's up? You set up your bank.
Once and then
You set up your bank account in each jurisdiction. So if you have a bank account in Canada, you set it up with that exchange. You have a bank account in Mexico, you set it up with that exchange. But the whole point is that now we can become a company that scales around the world as a global brand that offers a wallet and a buy-sell service. We don't deal with the regulatory environment because we never see any of those transactions. We let those partners deal with the AML KYC. So in a way, it's a decentralized aspect of connecting people to their value. Our take is, why should we try to go to each country and deal with this ourselves when there's great established players in those countries that have dealt with it and they're better at it than we are. And we're launching in Q2 for US and Canada, and we're hoping in Q3 for Mexico and the Philippines, and maybe even more than that. We'll see how quickly it ramps up. And that allows us to basically ramp up and scale across the world faster than I think a lot of the centralized options can. And so those are our partners, Bitso, Rebit, and Glidera, in our first set of launch countries. And I think a lot of people don't know about our wallet because all they see is a wallet that they use. Is actually underneath the covers is an amazing platform for developers. We've actually written most of the wallet functionality cross-platform for both iOS and Android. It's written in C++. It uses libBitcoin, like I was mentioning. And it actually accesses the decentralized network directly, and it also accesses our decentralized storage. And so traditionally what you see on the right side of the screen, if you can see it at all, is a standard application. It hops out to the internet to access some centralized server, and that accesses the distributed decentralized Bitcoin network. And so you have single points of failure here. If the storage is on the cloud, you've got a central point of failure as well. And on the left side, you've got the AirBitz model, where you basically put the intelligence that sits typically on an API server, you put that intelligence inside of your app, which means you're putting our client library inside of your app, and it knows how to access the decentralized network itself. And so your points of failure, as soon as you leave the app, you're already decentralized. You already have options as far as which service to access. And that entire platform is available for developers. So you can build an entire app on top of AirBitz, write your own Puey. It doesn't even have to be Bitcoin specific. You can actually write an app that says like a Quicken or QuickBooks, but is zero knowledge in that everything's encrypted client-side and then backed up and synchronized. And so this is the platform. This is basically a platform for zero-knowledge decentralized apps that we've built. And our first implementation is this mobile wallet. But in effect, we've created end-to-end encrypted communication of digital assets between apps and between devices. And so we see that this could be utilized for a bunch of different things, such as securing public and private key authentication. If any of you are familiar with being able to authenticate with a private key versus a login and password, then we could do this inside of this platform. Username password management, kind of like a LastPass, could be done with this. Private communications. One of the challenges with private communications is synchronizing a private key from one device to another, from your browser to your desktop, and a private key being synchronized across devices. Sounds like something we already do. So there you go. It's basically for free with the platform. And then also, like I mentioned, private financial applications. I know I used to use Quicken and QuickBooks on my desktop. I knew it was relatively private because I had my data. As soon as you go to QuickBooks Online or Quicken Online, you lose all of that privacy, and they want that juicy tidbits of information of how you're using your money. But we could build these type of applications with zero knowledge privacy, zero knowledge applications, encryption. And so that's the platform we've built. So just a quick recap of the layers of decentralization. First, oh, come on, you're jumping the gun on me. There we go. So the layers of decentralization, it starts with you owning your money. Own your keys, own your money, and that's important from a privacy point of view, security point of view, and reliability point of view, ease of use. And then once you have your keys, make sure that you kind of decentralize its storage. Where do you put it? And you decentralize how you access the network. Even if the network's decentralized, if you're going through a single channel, you've lost some of those benefits. And then the key one is your choice of implementation. This is mostly for developers. What are you going to be sitting on? What are you going to be mining on? I would love to see a project that actually builds a miner on top of a different implementation of Bitcoin, because that's when we really start to separate out our network versus everyone using Bitcoin Core. So final thought, Bitcoin's decentralization, it allowed it to succeed when many other digital currencies failed. There were many other digital currencies prior to Bitcoin. It was not the first one, but none of them were fully decentralized, or at least decentralized to the point that Bitcoin was. They all failed. They all got shut down or taken out. Bitcoin succeeded in that respect. So that's where I ask the question is, will a Bitcoin company's or project's success be dependent on its level of decentralization? I think it's true, and I think the history tends to repeat itself. Cool. Thank you very much. That's it.
Holy cow! That is just some awesome stuff there. I was,
Thank you.
I like Ben said. I was expecting to hear a little bit more about AirBitz, but you come in with these features about what you're going to do. That is some awesome stuff. I'm excited
Cool.
to see your launch on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure, fire away.
All right, so what's this decentralized storage? How does it work?
Cool. So the decentralized storage is partially decentralized in that it's fully peer-to-peer. There is no client, server, master, slave. The nodes on the network are actually running the Git protocol. We're actually running Git, which is a fully peer-to-peer protocol. A lot of people think of Git as client-server because of GitHub, but it actually is a peer-to-peer protocol. And the phone runs a lightweight version of the Git protocol. So it actually accesses, it stores on your phone files that look like they're stored using Git, and then it synchronizes that with nodes on the network. And it pushes it to one, and just like Bitcoin, as soon as one node receives it, it pushes it out to all the other nodes.
And this is how your private keys are stored in a decentralized manner?
Correct. And so they're encrypted on your phone, stored on the phone, and then pushed out to Git nodes. So it's decentralized in the sense that it's peer-to-peer. Right now we host all the nodes. So that's the point of failure, is that we do host the nodes. But with a few other changes, we can make it such that the security is good enough for other people to host those nodes if they wanted to. And one idea that we've had in the past is saying, because this is just utilizing very peer-to-peer tech, and it's open source tech, we can actually release an executable that someone could run on their computer at home and be one of those nodes for their own wallet. So it's not hard for us to do, it's just a matter of having the resources to actually build it. But it's not hard at all.
With your theme of decentralization, I think about the rumors that IBM's doing FedCoin and such. Do you agree with this thought, and have any comments, that FedCoin would just inherently will fail because there's no decentralization? One example I can see how it fails is because, well, where's all the money? It can't be fractioned at all, because we can see every single Bitcoin where it's at now.
Right. So a lot of projects like that have been brought to my attention, especially ones from other, especially smaller countries that have, I think, was it Bolivia that disallowed Bitcoin because they wanted to launch their own, and the Philippines has talked about it as well, peso coin. But one thing that could benefit Bitcoin is the fact that that at least introduces people to the concept of digital currency. And once they're in the digital currency space, it's really it's much easier of a transition to get to actual Bitcoin or a truly decentralized coin, whichever one that happens to be now or in the future. So I'm not a fan of it, but I do think that it might open the eyes for the public to get accustomed to using it. Similar to how Apple Pay people used to paying with their phone, even though I think that will fail. I have a whole other presentation on that. But at least it'll introduce people into that mechanism, and then we'll get them onto something that actually provides true value after that.
So, what's it for you? How is AirBitz monetizing this?
So we take I call it the Uber approach to building this network and infrastructure and monetization structure, is that as opposed to buying out every single cab company in the world to offer this value and connecting users to it, we connect to those people that are already offering the service. So these buy-sell exchanges, all of our partners give us a revenue cut. And in addition to us offering that, we're going to be offering other things such as being able to buy gift cards at a discount. We get a revenue cut of that. Offering mobile minutes. This is actually coming down pretty soon. So you can buy prepaid minutes for cell phone companies. I believe it's about 120 different providers around the world utilizing the AirBitz app integrated into the wallet. So things like that are how we plan to monetize. Really, it's by connecting people to the value instead of trying to be the value.
I had a question. So, within your network, within your platform, your protocol, is there room in there for having like other information, like another reference point, say like with the out return codes that are
Right now, there aren't hooks inside of the API to put things into the op return, but it's not a difficult change. It's just that we haven't had the need for it at this point in time, but we can definitely open that up. It's basically a few different parameters into the API that get trickled down, like on a transaction send. Hey, trickle down this little bit of metadata and send it into the op return. It's definitely not impossible. It just needs the plumbing needs to get put into place, and that would allow us to do much more advanced things and actually incorporate like tokenized assets.
So if somebody wants to use your protocol on your network, is there any cost to it? Is there like a coin or part of a coin that they have?
There is no coin, so the code right now sits on a unique open source license in that, and we're looking at changing this license in the future, but the license is that you can see it, you can use it, you can compile it, but just not modify. So the library ideally could be usable without modification. And right now, if you're able to use it without modification, then it's all yours. Have fun. It does require a few API keys to access the authentication server to create new accounts, but we've been doling those out pretty willy-nilly and free.
Great.
For all your students that you partner with, are you going to enable instant buy and sell?
So the instant buy and sell is entirely up to them. Since they're the ones doing the AML, KYC, they have to do the fraud prevention. We leave it to them as far as the restrictions placed on different users, customers. Our partner here in the US is looking at enabling instant for people after a certain period of time of a clear history. I don't think that they could do it right away, plus they're fairly new, so they're still going to learn what the fraud patterns are going to look like for them. But we're pushing them hard to at least enable instant buy sell at a very small amount. I don't know how many of you introduce people to Bitcoin, but when you do, it's nice to let them buy Bitcoin right away, even if it's $10, $20. So I'm pushing hard on them to do that, just that I don't know that they could do it right away.
One more. Charlie Lee wouldn't forgive me if I didn't ask. Any plans for Litecoin or other altcoins?
Nobody's welcome to hop into our code base and add it. If you want a really good wallet for Litecoin, then he's welcome to hop into AirBitz and add support for it.
I'll let him know.
How are you guys monetizing your service? How are you making money?
You just asked that.
Yes, how we're monetizing, just to recap so in case you didn't hear, we're monetizing through our exchange partners and other value services that we connect inside of the wallet. Yeah, no worries.
Is there any like a 5-year prediction on Bitcoin you're willing to share?
5-year predictions, I did. The one prediction I had made a few times is that in 5 years we would not be using custodial accounts. Either that or
Across the board?
across the board,
Yeah.
or if we were, then we wouldn't be using Bitcoin.
There's
We'd
no
be-
reason not to run away with all the funds if you're pulling a bunch of people's money.
Well, not necessarily run away with the funds, but there's no reason not to fractionally reserve them.
Or that.
So we'd have one or the other. I'd say we aren't using them, or we'd have fractional reserve, and then we actually aren't doing on-chain transactions. We're just saying, hey, Coinbase, I owe you some money, I'm Circle, that kind of thing. And we're just transferring debt. So if we're actually transferring value on the blockchain, I predict that we are not using custodial accounts because the usability, due to security needs, is going to crumble and fail. So that's a pretty bold statement, and I don't think many people would say that. And you know, it's just how I feel, and I'm pretty confident based on me using all the different systems and my experience with it. Yep.
How's the response been with newcomers into Bitcoin with your app? Have you heard comments and care to share a couple of them?
Yeah, for sure. And we're always iterating. We want to hear feedback from all of you. Hammer us with your feedback on the user experience, the reliability, anything. We're always looking to improve. Some of the feedback we've had has been generally very, very positive from new users because, especially ones that don't touch Bitcoin. They've never used Bitcoin before. They're the ones that have the most fluid experience because it's familiar. It's like username, password, blah, blah, blah. It's the people that have been using Bitcoin since 2010, 2011 that sometimes flip out because they're so used to the friction. They're so used to I have to write down 24 words. And they start questioning, and they actually think that we're a hosted wallet. And they're like, oh, nope, I'm not giving up my privacy. I'm not giving you my email. I go, but we never asked for it. And they see this username field, they instantly think it's their email. And so we actually changed our UX to say when you sign up for an account, this is not your real name, this is not your email. It's just a username. And that's helped communicate. One of our biggest challenges really is communication because we do so much under the cover, yet we also do so much at the user experience level, at the UI level, that people don't see what we're doing underneath, and they think that we're just a fluffy bunny that looks like a bank. So generally speaking, the experience has been positive. The thing is that we are doing encryption. So a password is implementing encryption, and probably our biggest pain point is that passwords that do encryption need to have a good amount of entropy. And so the length of a password, it's either perfect and no problem, or people struggle. There's almost no in between. It's like if someone's used to an 8-character password and we ask for 10, they're sitting there for like 5 minutes. If they're used to 10, it's like no sweat. That's probably our biggest pain point and one of the things that we struggle with on a regular basis. But so far, I think what's happening is people are getting accustomed to the change. Like everything used to be 6 characters, then it became 8, and now people got used to that. And then it got to 10, and I think it's stabilizing around that 10-character space. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions?
Good.
All right, cool. All right, thanks a lot, guys.